Welcome to the Leadcast. This is a podcast where I talk to leaders across the BC Public Service about a bunch of different things. We talk about professional development. We talk about what motivates them. Motivates them as leaders. And yeah, I think it's just, I guess I've always wanted to know more about leaders at all levels across the BC Public Service. So this is my chance to do it, to talk to people like Jen Racine and dig a bit deeper into her job, what she does on a day-to-day basis, but also her advice. I remember she mentioned her advice for people progressing through their careers or starting out, or anyone really, is just to plan lightly, which I love. I don't know if that was included in the recording or not, but before the mics were on, we talked about how it's important to plan out your career, out what you want to do next, but to do it lightly because you never know what opportunities are going to present themselves. So for me, it's really an example of how to be agile and flexible, what she's talking about. So having a rough idea of where you want to go, but then building on your successes as you go and looking for opportunities all the time.
It's going to be like jingle music at the beginning.
There's definitely going to be jingle
Introducing.
music. Yeah. You can compose something if you would like to. I don't know if you play piano.
That'd be cool. I do.
You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm learning how to play the ukulele.
Well, let's talk jingles for the
that could
podcast.
Be pretty cool.
Yeah, that could be your new gig, writing jingles for all the BC Public Service podcasts.
That'd be amazing.
Something tells me just like that. Did you do a lot of extracurricular stuff when you were a kid?
Not a ton.
No sports or anything?
I played sports with my school.
Yeah.
So I didn't do anything more than just like the school sports.
Yeah.
I like to say I was like the best bench warmer ever in like the history of my high school. I played basketball
Warmed that
and
bench.
I'm 5'4".
Yeah.
I'm not a terrible basketball player, but it was not the best.
Yeah.
But so I was the best bench warmer / cheerleader that like my team had ever seen.
Yeah.
And then I played piano. That was my other thing.
It's hard for. I remember I played a bunch of sports. Same thing, just for my school or whatever.
Yeah.
Growing up, but I remember there was a big difference between being on the junior team, the junior basketball team, when I was like, I would get some playing time, and I wasn't the best. I was kind of like an average, maybe a bit below average on the team, you know. So also spent some time warming the bench, but but I remember then joining the senior team. It was like there's such a difference in high school boys, right? Like some just look like they're, some kids, some guys when they're like 18 still look like they're 12.
Yes.
And then others are like, they're full men, like they have beards and stuff. And so I remember, and I'm not super tall either. And I wasn't at that point either. I remember going, playing for the senior team, and at games there would be these just like men with huge beards that were like 175 pounds, and I couldn't shoot over them. Like I was just being blocked left, right, and center, and I left the team very discouraged because I was like, this is why you need height to be. Not that there aren't good short basketball players out there.
Totally.
You and I are good examples.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the first job you got?
Yeah, because of my family context, and the first job I landed was with the federal government.
Okay.
At the Pacific Forestry Center, which is on Burnside here in Victoria, part of NRCan. It's like I think it's called something else now. But at the time, it was the Pacific Forestry Center. And the reason that I was able to get the job, it was like a receptionist position, so very entry level.
Yeah.
Very, yep, yeah. And because I am bilingual, and so that opens up a lot of doors for you in the federal government.
Right, of course.
And so it was kind of an easy in, and that's where I started. And then from there,
it's a pretty good first job
it was great.
after undergrad. Like you probably had good good benefits, decent pay, could move out. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the environment was great. Really fantastic people, good organization. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. And I like people. So, and I don't know if anyone has ever been to the Forestry Center. Literally, like, I was sitting where the main door is. So I got to see everyone every day, say hello, welcome people, engage in conversation. Like, that's really fun.
Right.
So it was nice in that sense. And then because I had done my degree in HR and marketing, my sense at that point in time was that I wanted to go down the HR path. And so what I did is I just asked if I could take on like some side work just to grow my practice and my understanding of how HR might work in the federal.
Right.
And that's how I was able to gain a little bit of experience, because what I found, and I don't know if it's the same today, it must be, but sure, you come out of university with a degree in something, but if you don't have any experience, you're not getting a job in that space. Like, it's very difficult to get in.
Yeah.
And so unless someone just can somehow take a chance on you or, something. But if you don't have experience.
You need experience to get experience.
Yeah.
You need it to get it.
Yeah.
And like, how do you get your foot in the door?
Yeah. Exactly. So I was just getting turned down left, right, and center for any job that had to do with human resources because I didn't have any experience. So I just started doing some side work for the HR team that worked there. And then I was actually able to say with confidence that I had some experience in certain aspects of human resources.
Yeah.
And then I was able to apply. I applied on a job with BC Assessment, and it was a staffing position, like in the recruitment, the HR team recruitment. And
that's the organization that does housing assessments?
Yes, property assessments.
For taxes and
That's
stuff
right.
like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and they took a chance on me. And I was hired in at like an HR kind of analyst kind of role. And I did a ton of their recruitment and I helped with their staffing, and I grew a lot there. And then from there, I applied on an SHR, strategic HR position here in our public service. So it was a bit of a departure because I kind of went from like operational human resources to having an interest in the more strategic side of human resources.
Right.
And then I was successful in that position, and that's how I entered government.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just what you said about when you were first, when you were doing the administrative position and applying on HR jobs and getting turned down left, right, and center.
Yeah.
It just, what it brings up for me is that it's so, it's such a hard process when you're trying to make a career move, and it could be lateral or vertical or whatever, but especially when you're trying to break into a new area, and it's the time when you need. The process, my experience is that the process of applying for jobs requires so much energy, but it also takes a lot of energy from you.
Yeah.
And it's an emotional roller coaster, getting screened in, getting screened out, going to panels, getting feedback, thinking you did well, and then getting turned down. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is.
To get, especially when you're trying to level up in your career or break into a new area. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I think, what was it? So here's the other thing too, is I think, again, going back to like the plan lightly, because you just don't know what's going to come your way next. But I'm pretty sure I took a pay cut going from BC Assessment back into the BC Public Service. And like, obviously that's a choice that one would make depending on, where they want to go. But for a lot of people, like I was just lucky to be in a position where that was doable then, right? And sometimes that's not always doable. But I kind of had this sense that I knew enough about the BC Public Service and enough about the range of opportunities that I might have access to know that, this could be a really smart move. It could open up a lot more opportunity for me as opposed to staying in like BC Assessment or like a smaller crown or something. So I think that that's kind of, you make trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
But I think that in a lot of ways, you have to get creative with how you can say that you've gained certain types of experiences so that you can actually go and submit an application for a job and actually say like, no, I've done this. It might not have been my formal role at that at that organization or something, but I did all of these things and I know I can do it. Yeah.
Was that? I'm curious if that was a taking a pay cut. Was that a humbling experience, or was it more like you're just like, this is just what I got to do. I'm just gonna do it. Like,
No,
which was it?
No, because I don't like. For me, well, pay is a funny thing, right? But no, it wasn't a humbling thing for me at the time at all. No,
You were young. You were like, this is the area I want to work in.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do it. And
For me, it was like, no, this is. I actually just saw it as a smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, this is a smart move. I got to do this. I was very practical about the decision, as I am with most things. Like,
yeah.
And no.
I don't think that's such a common thing for people to be so practical about decisions like that. Like I don't know. Me, it's kind of an emotional decision sometimes. Not sometimes, every time when I'm changing a job or deciding to move into a new area.
Absolutely.
But you were pretty cutthroat about it.
Well,
with yourself. I don't mean with other people. I just mean you
just
were...
that element. Yeah. To me, that was like it seemed like a no-brainer to me, given what I said. I really did think that. I mean, obviously, I think that I'm a good example of that. 12 years later.
Paid off.
I'm still in the BC Public Service, and I'm very happy, right? Yeah. And so I think that in hindsight, that was a smart move, but it may not have been, because again, who knows, right? But so I think that on that side of things, I'm very practical.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, though, leaving jobs is like the hardest thing.
Yeah.
I have not ever left a job where I haven't been in like absolute tears. Because I've loved all of my experiences, and the people that you get to work with and grow with, and like they become like kind of like your family. You see them so much, right? So, yeah. So, no, like every time I leave one job for another, it's like the hardest thing. I just think that there are practical elements to all of those moves, right? And those are, that's like, okay, well, this is this, you know? And then the other side is, man, I don't want to stop working with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems to me like there's two pieces. There's you describe yourself as being very practical with the move forward, right? And you are. And that's, for me, even that piece is a bit emotional. You're so logical in moving forward. But then the leaving people behind part for you is more like, it's my team, or, it's my mentor,
work.
Or the work, or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. I mean, I've had the luck, I think, of working with like amazing teams, and so I think that just kind of compounds that sentiment, around leaving people and leaving the work. So like the work has been so fulfilling, and the teams have been like truly like my friends, and so that's the hard part. Is like you don't want to leave the people that you've grown to love so much, and the work that you've just grown to love so much, and you don't know what's coming up, because like whenever you make that move, you really don't know what's next, right? So it's just like, it's hard, just like so many things, but change is hard.
Yeah. And so is there a team that maybe this is maybe you're not going to want to answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
What has been I won't ask about teams. I'll ask about work. What's been your favorite piece of work that you've done so far?
So my favorite piece of work includes I don't love this word, but the end user, so like the user, the person at the end of the line that's going to be in receipt of the service or the thing, right? So that's like my broad opening. Probably my absolute favorite was working. I had a few years where I worked on the service design team, and we got to go out and sit down with citizens, with the real people of our province, the people that we serve, and those are some of my best days. I really, really enjoy that kind of work. It's actually like it's life changing. And I say that from my perspective because just given my life and my experience, it's eye-opening to be in the room with someone who is, trying to access a certain type of service or trying to find out if there is a service for them or something like that through our government, and really trying to understand what it is that they're going through. So,
what's an example of like a life-changing? I mean, that sounds pretty big, but like, is there an engagement that sticks out in your mind, or like a consultation? It sounds like you were working with the public a lot. Like what
all do.
exactly?
Yeah, they all do. So, well, service design, like the one of the beginning phases of service design is called the discovery phase, and that's where you do a lot of research with the end user, as we say, right? The citizen, or it could be, we apply service design here in the Innovation Hub. So for us, the end user, so I'm doing air quotes, is our BCPS employees, right? And so it doesn't matter who the end user is, it's always fascinating sitting down with the person and asking them questions about their service interaction or what's going on in their lives and what's challenging, what's working well, all that stuff. So on the citizen side of things, I would say some of the most impactful experiences for me were around, I did a project around childcare. So I got to sit with parents, service providers, sometimes entire families with their children, and talk about their challenges with accessing childcare. And that was really interesting.
Wait, is that in Victoria or
all over the province?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you go to different communities.
Yeah. So it's important to get a good sample of demographics in different areas of the province. Different areas of the province obviously will be impacted in different ways by some of the challenges, right? Like, so in some, for example, like maybe in a smaller community, the issues regarding childcare might be lesser than in the Lower Mainland, right? For example, so it's important to kind of get a cross section of
to account for the differences in all
That's
the different
right.
communities.
Yeah. So like that's definitely one. I actually did a lot of work with the Ministry of Finance in the area of PST, and so that's not as like that's a little bit more, I don't know, like business, if you will. Like childcare is like, this is sometimes, I mean, so is PST. It all affects everyone's livelihood. At the end of the day, when people come and interact with a government, doesn't matter what level, it's really important stuff that they're coming for, right? Like it's not usually like, buying something off Amazon, like buying a beautiful new blanket. That's not what you come to government for. You don't come to government for like the fun stuff. You come to government because you got to pay your taxes, because you are looking for help with childcare, for example. Like maybe you're looking for a subsidy. Maybe you're, like there's a variety of things that you could be coming to government for, but they're not usually like overly exciting and riveting experiences. We're here to provide supports to people in government that need them the most, right?
Right.
Or to people in our province, that need them the most. So, yeah.
So how remote did you go in terms of like communities?
Yeah.
Like where, like what are some of the communities you went to?
I did one project with health ages ago, and we went to some smaller communities, like Salmon Arm. I can't remember all of them. It was so long ago. But that is actually one of the beautiful things, too, of having a job that allows you to get out and to interview people like this, is like you do get to see, not only do you learn so much about the people that we're serving, but you get to see the province, which is something that, like, I don't know that I would have gone to a lot of these smaller towns if I wasn't in the position that I was. So, like, again, I feel like extremely lucky to have had those types of experiences. Yeah.
I makes me think back to when I was doing contract management stuff for the Ministry of Children and Family Development. I'm still there, but in a previous role, I managed these contracts, and part of my responsibilities were site visits. So going out to the actual communities, meeting with the contractors, sometimes users of the services that the contractors were providing
Yeah.
on our behalf, on the government's behalf.
Yep.
I just felt like it was just a huge privilege
Yes.
to be able to. I was at a place in my life where I was young, single guy, no kids, no real things that I had to be, home for. And so it was kind of a perfect time for me to go travel the province and just go to places that I had never gone to before,
Yes.
like going up to Fort Nelson,
Yeah.
Fort St. John, these places that are like, they're obviously in our province, but I had not had an opportunity to go there. And it was
Totally.
really neat
Yeah.
to see people's generosity too.
Yeah.
In terms of sometimes I would show up and they would have a whole agenda for me. Like we'd do our site visit and all that sort of stuff. But then sometimes they would have like a cultural event they wanted to bring me to,
Yes.
or like dinner
It's
or this.
amazing.
And it's like, I was blown away by my travels of BC, and I don't think I have the same stamina I did at the time to do it.
Definitely.
To be on the road every
You need
2
it.
weeks.
Yeah.
But
And long days.
Long
and,
days.
And the interaction with the people, it can be heavy. And
Yep.
so, but it's, God, it's so, so rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And like you said, people are, there is a lot of great work going on. We do provide a lot of great services, but sometimes people, when they get to the point of interacting with the government, whatever, trying to get whatever service, they are frustrated for whatever reason. They haven't been able to access services in their community, so they had to go to a different community. Like that's a common issue with more remote, remote communities.
Yeah, accessibility.
Yeah,
right?
all that sort of stuff. And I think there is a push to make as much available online and digitally as we can, but still,
even then,
even
not
then,
everyone has access.
Yeah.
Even to an
the internet
connection.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's fascinating.
yeah. So you have been a part of the Innovation Hub at the BC Public Service for how long?
Almost 3 years. Just
Wow.
about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what, like, for someone that has no idea, they haven't heard of the hub, like, what do you guys do? Like, what is it you do? What are the events you put on? What is the work you do? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
what is the hub about?
Yeah. So the reason that we're here is to build a movement where all BC Public Service employees are inspired and empowered to reimagine how we work now and into the future. And
That's very pretty.
yeah,
That's nice.
we worked on that.
That's a vision statement.
We worked on
I'm
that
guessing,
for a long
or
time.
a mission statement.
It's like
something?
our why. It's our
Okay.
why.
Okay.
Yeah. So we want to inspire and empower everyone to really rethink how it is that we do what we do. And ultimately, it is with that end user in mind, right? Like the citizen, the person that you're serving, whether it's a citizen or a lot of us serve people inside government, right? So, so that is our why. And ultimately, so as I said, I came from service design before this. And so I have applied the same methodology to much of what I've done on the hub. And we continue to do that because it makes a ton of sense.
Is that design thinking?
Yeah, it's similar.
A part of
It's similar.
that?
Yeah, they all have like little nuances: design thinking, human-centered design, service design, user experience design. They're all like slightly different things, but it's in that family. And so so from the get-go, from the moment that I started in this role, I started talking to BC public servants and trying to understand what's happening in their world, and then from there trying to build up what it is that the Innovation Hub could be here to do. So for some people that have been in the public service for a few years now, in the current iteration, but soon to be probably replaced with a new version. But the current iteration of our Where Ideas Work corporate plan, it was released in the fall of 2016, and that's where the Innovation Hub was introduced. And in the plan, it was very broad, right? It said something to the extent of the Innovation Hub is going to be a new initiative in the BC Public Service, and its purpose is to sort of more consistently apply, or try to consistently, spread innovation and innovation culture across the public service, something to that degree. And because we obviously know, I think you mentioned this earlier, that innovation happens all the time in the public service. Is it consistent across the board? Not so much. Do we have the consistent mindset that maybe we should all be trying to kind of get behind? Maybe not so much. So that's what I kind of set out to do, is really try to understand the people before kind of assuming that, this is what we're here to do, if that makes sense. So we kind of continue doing that over time. And to this day, we're still investigating, because that's the whole point of a thing like an innovation hub, is to really continually understand where it is that we can bring the most value. But at the end of the day, where we've landed is that the space of capacity building is really important, that people need they need supports, they need resources, they need to learn a lot about what this is about. If we're to be able to build this culture of innovation and build a sustainable culture of innovation, so much of that is so closely tied to learning. And so capacity building is a really big stream of our work. And then alongside that, building our communities and our partnerships and our networks, both inside and outside of government, is extremely important.
So just to
Yes.
jump in here and say something like, I do want to define our terms a little bit, just because I think language is so important when we're talking about, especially when we get into government and talk about, it's not just government, it's people in general. I try to be really thoughtful about the words I use and the meaning behind it, and I kind of something goes off for me when I sense that I'm not clear on what someone means by a term. So when we're talking about innovation, we're talking about, you said it's one of those difficult things to define a word without using the word, right? But you mentioned reimagining. Is it just basically like critically thinking about the work?
It could be. Yeah. So I think every day, if everyone could come in and kind of, get to their desk or wherever it is that they work and ask themselves, am I doing the best possible thing I could be doing? Is this the best possible way I could be doing it? Is there another way? That is a huge win. So I think ultimately it's about change for the better. It's about always thinking, is this the best that we can do? And so, but that's very complex, because it's difficult to do that when you don't have the line of sight, right? So if you're coming in every day and you truly don't actually maybe even understand how your work ultimately helps to serve the province, that's kind of a foundational piece to understanding how you can do something better, right? Yeah. So I think it's just informing yourself overall, and that's like a continual process that never ends. But really informing yourself as to like why it is that you're doing what you're doing, and how at the end of the day it helps to contribute to a better BC. Like, I think that's kind of the core of it. So again, using the word innovation is blurring. So like, it's good that you kind of stopped and said, well, okay, whoa. Yeah, and we even joke in the Innovation Hub. It's like, can we change our name? Like, because it makes people think of different things. And at the core of it, what we're trying to do is we're working at the foundations, right? We're working to help people approach their work in a different way. We want people to have an open mindset to kind of go, oh, again, not to be repetitive, but is this the best thing we could be doing? Is this the best way we could be doing it? Is there another way? Is there something more simple? And so it's so much about mindset and people.
Yeah.
So we don't really touch on. A lot of people think when they hear innovation, they think about the digital space. They think about technology.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
Tools, like technological tools.
Yeah.
And of course, that's part of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
It just simply isn't our focus in our hub. We have what we call our Innovation Collective, which is a bit of a broader community of people who do work that would quote unquote touch any kind of space that is trying to, make
Innovate.
government better. I'm trying not to use the
I know.
word innovation.
I could see like a vein in
that
your head.
touches
like
innovation.
You were
like
trying to find another word. No, I think I am getting what you're saying a lot more now, and I think for me, when I think of innovation, and so those contracts that I alluded to, I talked about managing.
Yes. Contracts.
Amazing work was being done. Innovative work was being done in communities.
Yes.
The name at that time of the contracts, I think it is still called the same thing, it's working with Indigenous communities. So the name of the suite of contracts was the Aboriginal Service Innovation Child Safety and Permanence Contract. It's like a big, long thing, but had the name innovation, had the word innovation in the title. And I always thought that there was innovative work going on the ground, but it wasn't because it was titled innovative.
Yeah.
It was, the title came after the fact.
Yes.
But
yeah.
when I think of innovative, and you were talking about digital and technology and stuff, I think a lot of people, myself included, think about newer, faster, better.
Yeah.
When you hear innovative, to hear the word innovative.
Yes.
And I think what I'm hearing you say is that that can be included in the definition, but it's really about, and this makes sense to me too, really about taking a look at what you're doing every day, including the processes, including the forms we use, including the way we deliver our services, including the way we relate with each other, our supervisors, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
And not to say there's not good practice, but taking a look at, is this working to provide better service to citizens, or does it not? And if it does, it's like that iterative process of just building on what works. That's great.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, then the process isn't serving its purpose, or the service isn't as good as it could be. So starting again. So it's not, and I think that could be I could see that being something that people criticize innovation shops for, or people that talk a lot about innovation is like newer isn't always better.
Yeah.
And that's true.
No. Yeah.
But so anyway, that's just what was coming up for me when you were talking.
I think and we're the perfect example of that because honestly, when 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when this was a newer initiative, I think we had very different ideas about what we'd be doing.
Yeah.
And like I said, because we went out and we really worked with as many people in the public service as we could, we learned that actually we got to go back to basics. So it isn't necessarily about that bright, shiny object. And it's a little bit to our dismay, actually. Like, we would like to be at the bright, shiny object. That would be awesome. But we're going back to basics and you mentioned one of the really important ones. It's like team health, right? Like, and how do we interact with each other at work? And so, you see some of the initiatives that the Innovation Hub puts on, and we make a really big effort to highlight the human aspect of things. Like, so in a lot of ways, it's almost like it's about simple. It's about the basics again. It's about setting the foundations. It's starting at the ground level, as opposed to going what we really want is that North Star over there. But I think that it's good to have the North Star and to go well, can you imagine a public service that is skilled up, that is equipped, that, has everything it needs, that it could imagine to do the best job it can possibly do. that we know how to truly collaborate across organizations, that we figured out how that works, that we figured out how we can even share funding across really important initiatives. I mean, I know we have in certain areas. Like I'm not saying we haven't.
Yeah.
It's more that consistency, right? It's like, sure, so for certain things we figured some things out. We have, of course. We're doing well. I just think we can always do better.
Yeah.
Like we can always do more. And I think that it comes down to almost an individual space, right? Where we can really just question like, is this really the best thing I can be doing? And I mean, and that even goes like on like a personal note, like, like you have to look at how you show up every day. So for me, it's like, how do I show up every day? And we've worked really hard on the Innovation Hub team to like, essentially we have to model what it is that we talk about. So we work really hard on a lot of the elements that we talk about. And one of them is creating this culture of feedback. And so we try to be really open about how things are going. And I try to put myself out there as much as possible to say, I want to hear about how things are going, and this should be a two-way street. And so I love getting feedback. I've lost my train of thought.
Here's some feedback. You're doing great. Just keep going.
I love the feedback.
Yeah.
But going back to like even that's a foundational piece, right? Where it's like, how are we actually showing up to work, and how are we being really effective as teams? We cannot be an innovative organization if we're not even functioning well at a team level.
Yeah.
So we're even talking about things like how do we run our meetings? Like, so we hear things all the time, for example, like we're in a culture of busy.
Yes.
But a lot of that is made up, and I make it up myself. Like I'll be the first to say, I work so hard to never say that I'm busy, and that was feedback that I got from my team.
Yeah.
Stop saying you're busy. Stop saying you have no time.
Yeah.
Like it's not constructive. And it's like,
I know,
God,
especially
yes.
Yeah, especially I think I was just talking about this the other day. It's a part of our culture, though.
It is.
I think, and it's because I think a lot of people equate busyness with importance sometimes, and not sometimes, often.
Often, yeah.
And so busyness is almost seen as like a badge of honor. Like the more busy you are, for example, the more important you are, right? And I always think it's interesting when and I'm guilty of this too also. But when you ask people, how's work going? What's the answer you always get? Oh my God,
I'm just so busy.
It's so busy right now. Oh my gosh, it's so busy. My ADM's back, my DM's, it's just so busy right now. And I've never heard anyone say when they're asked, how's work going? What's work like? Oh, I'm really effective lately.
I know.
And like, isn't that more important than being busy?
I'm getting a lot done.
Yeah,
it feels really good.
Yeah, So so it's
things like that where that's where we have found ourselves focusing a lot of our efforts is on like the really basic stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you have to call stuff out sometimes, right? Like that. And like I was called out. I mean, okay, it wasn't fake. I was overpacking my plate.
Yeah. So what?
But I didn't have to.
That's what I was going to say.
That's on me. That's bad time management. That's bad decision making. It's like I can decide how I want to fill up my calendar.
Yeah. Do you know the designer Debbie Millman? Do you know her? She's she's great. She's brilliant. Highly recommend checking her out.
I will. Yeah.
But she does like branding design, like corporate branding design, and anyway, she's out in New York. She's great. She's got a podcast. Highly recommend checking her out. But she's got this thing she says often, and that's busy as a decision. And I love that.
Yes,
I love that.
I can completely get behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? Like you were saying, it wasn't fake. You weren't just saying you were busy. You were
no.
legit busy.
Yeah.
But so what did you do to address that?
Well, it was right around the same time that I got a coach.
Okay.
It's huge.
Okay.
Getting a coach.
Like a basketball coach?
Yes. So I could warm the bench.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And even like in starting to get coaching is a lesson Because if you were never coached in the sense of like career coaching or just even like life coaching, if you will, because what really, like for me, what's the difference? My life and my career, it blends. But
Yeah.
so coaching in general, like I think that that's definitely like a work, it's like an incremental thing. Like initially I was like, I don't know, this doesn't really feel like it's going to be all that helpful. But I stuck with it and I made myself, make all the appointments and like, oh, and I'm converted now. So coaching was one of the things. And so I would talk to my coach about this stuff and say, my team's saying like, it's not, it's not sounding so good when you're like, oh, I have no time. When can I make this fit? Like, so I would kind of talk things through with my coach and, but it's not like coaches aren't there to like give you answers, right? Like they're there to kind of ask really good questions and see if you can figure it out. So again, it took me a while to kind of figure out what my path might be, and I think that that's kind of maybe natural. I don't know. So at the end of sort of the short of it, I guess, is that I've just started like guarding my time. And
how exactly?
Yeah, and really questioning if I have to be the one doing certain things. So the other thing here is that I've been with the Innovation Hub for 3 years, and prior to that, I was with the service design team where I had 2 staff, and then I grew into the service design role where I didn't have any staff initially, and now the team is 8 people, and so I have a team of people who are like so passionate and so committed, and like truly, I adore our team. It's like an amazing team. But with passion comes, intensity and again, we're a very close team. We work really closely together. We collaborate in person a lot. Like we're in the same space a lot doing the work that we do. It's just the way that we work. And so, so I was kind of just trying to like navigate going from kind of being the person that was sort of doing it all because I didn't have a team initially. Right. It was just me and my then supervisor. So it was like 2 of us kind of trying to figure stuff out. And in a lot of ways, not having staff really simplifies things. But in another respect, you cannot get just about anything done because you're solo. You're flying just, as a twosome as opposed to having this small army of people that are behind the same, pathway as you are, So like, obviously there's pluses and minuses to everything. So I was learning how to navigate this super amazing, intense, passionate team of people who are here to like essentially change things. And that's what we want to do at the core of our existence, right? So I had to learn to delegate. I had to learn to let go of things because, again, I was like kind of flying solo in the beginning and trying to run all these initiatives and learning to kind of go, well, no, the reason that these people are here is because like they're extremely capable, if not like they're so much more capable than me to do this stuff. But it's like letting go, right? Yeah. And it's going like, you can do this. And also there's a fine balance between you can do this and I'm going to sit back and relax. And it's not that, right? It's like it's a shift in what your role is. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. That's my long-winded way of saying it's a shift.
Yeah, it is tough. I remember when I started to have a team as well. It is, especially if you're at all a detail-oriented person and you care about doing your job well, to go from a subject matter expert where you're vetting everything, where you're controlling every aspect of your work and everything you send out, to having a team where if you're a good leader, you're not micromanaging every little thing that everyone's doing. You need to trust your team, right? But it's hard to go from that from knowing all the details and being are you all right?
I'm great.
Okay. That was really good. You pulled away from the mic. Yeah, that was good. That's okay. I've coughed a couple of times.
I didn't want to make any
You didn't want to draw attention to it?
Noises.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just drawing attention to it now. Yeah. No, but it's hard to go from being, so hands-on in your work and being a doer to someone who's a manager or a director, whatever, when
it's really hard.
Really your job is to get your team the support they
Yeah.
need to get whatever.
Yeah.
And everyone's different too. Some people need a lot of support. Some people need like next to nothing. Like
Yeah.
it's really an art. So
Yeah.
I want to go back to something you said about you learn to guard your time, and so delegating is a part of that
Delegating.
for sure.
Yep.
And what else did you do? Like, did you do stuff with your calendar? Did you clean like?
Physically, yes. Like I would actually, I actually block portions of time in my Outlook calendar so people can't book me. And it's also a reminder for me to have some heads down work time. Because although I am delegating, I still have deliverables and things that I have to do. So what I was finding is when I was filling up my days full of meetings, which were really important and needed, but I was doing too much in my role, like for what I could handle, then what would happen is I'd find myself having to do my work in like off hours.
After work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was okay for a while, but it's just not sustainable and it's not healthy. It's not. Like it's actually really good. What I have found, and it's so silly because like people listening to this will be like, well, yeah, duh. But like, especially the work that I get to do. And again, like I go back to feeling like I feel very privileged. I feel very lucky to get to do the work that I get to do. And it doesn't end. So even if I'm not like actually working on something in the evenings, I'm probably reading something that's related to the space of work I'm in. I'm doing something. Like I'm active on social media and I'm connecting with other people. And so it's kind of like an ongoing gig anyways. And I think that's a personal preference too. I kind of like living my life that way and I get a lot of fulfillment and reward out of my work. So to me, blending them together works for my lifestyle, right? And for what I want. But it's different between like having like this to-do list in the evenings because you just didn't give yourself the time in the day. And I mean it, give yourself. Like that's the difference for me is I was making a choice to go, not even a lunch hour. You're just going to work, you know, like, and that's what's unsustainable. And the second you step away from the like deep focus of the work that you do and you get exposed to other things, you actually gain clarity on your work. Like that's what I found. It was like I was getting too wrapped up in the specifics of public sector innovation, for example. That's generally the space in which we say we operate in. So when you go too deep there, you lose its tunnel vision. So it's about finding a balance, and it's a game. It's like you're constantly kind of at it. But those are the couple of things is like I've learned to actually block time, do some work. Sometimes I get to, you know, a Friday or something after a big week and I've essentially blocked almost all my day. But it's time for me to just like even think, reflect on things. Like reflecting is so important and it's something that we don't often really talk a lot about or have the luxury of doing.
Yeah.
Because we are in this busy culture, right? Like, so we don't like step back and go like, what? How did that go? Or like, oh, could I have done something different in that situation? And you cannot do that if you don't have the space in your calendar or in your mind or something, right? So
I think blocking off time is key to be able to do any sort of deep work, any sort of like long
completely
reading or anything where you need focused attention for more than an hour. I need to book time. What I've started doing, and I don't know if you do this. I know a couple of people who do this, but I've actually started scheduling time to check emails.
Yeah.
And outside of that time, because it is such a time and focus suck, especially when you're getting notification after notification after notification.
I've turned my notifications off.
Me too.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. It is. And it's also
but you need to stay on top of it.
Nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Right? Because you're like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
But
what
it's worth it, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, I schedule checking emails for as often as I need to in a given day or week. So if it's every hour, great. If it's every 3 hours, great, or whatever. And I get it that not especially people in service delivery, they don't have the luxury to do that.
Yeah.
When someone comes to the counter, you have to give them service.
For sure.
When, as a social worker, you get a call about a child in danger, you have to go. You can't batch those emails or phone calls. But for those of us who do not work in direct service and who are not doing any sort of emergency frontline jobs, a lot of the emergencies are actually not emergencies.
No. Yeah.
Like there are people telling you something is an emergency or is important.
That's right.
And what I've found is I've had to train myself to and train other people on my team and people who I interact with that I may not get back to your email within a minute.
Mm-hmm.
It may take me a couple hours, but you will hear back from me by the end of the day or lunch hour every single day because I clear out my email every day. And
Stop.
and if you
That's amazing.
If you really need if it is an emergency, why are you sending an email?
Call me.
You call me.
Call me.
Yeah. But it is.
It's good tricks.
Yeah. Another scary thing is, I don't know if you've done this, but checking the screen time application on your phone, and you can see the breakdown of how much time you spend on each app or email. Mm-hmm. God, that is a horrible but enlightening thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah. I just discovered that the other week, actually. And
I try to ignore it.
Yeah. Do you ever unplug? Like, do you go on vacation? Do you turn off your work phone?
So, apparently, I don't know if this is myth or real. There's a lot of myth, right, in the public service. But apparently there's a policy that says you can't bring your devices or your computer with you if you leave Canada.
Yeah.
So whenever I leave Canada, I am forced to leave my devices. So it's a forced stop.
Break. Yeah.
Which is nice, but also extremely nerve-wracking, right? Like I am definitely the kind of person that like I'm almost always connected. And then on like more of a day-to-day basis though, I generally will like just disconnect like closer to when I want to go to bed, and I pick up a book and I try to not just read on a device, because often these days we read on devices, right? So I still love a real book. So it's kind of a bit of a break from that.
So the 20 minutes before you go to bed, that's when you unplug, or when you leave the country. I turned off all my tech the other weekend to go camping. It was so nice. It was so nice.
Oh, it's so good.
You can do it, Jen.
I think I can. I don't have like a real reason to, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to stay connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I find like we are so stimulated. Like I am, and this is something that I need to get better at too, because I'm notorious for, as soon as I get up in the morning, I put in headphones. I'm listening to music, audiobooks, podcasts, all that sort of stuff when I'm walking the dog, when I'm doing the dishes, like all that sort of stuff, like nonstop, right? But I found because we don't like to be bored in this era.
Oh,
we
no.
don't want any downtime.
I don't know how to be bored.
We
I've
hate
lost
it. I think it actually gives people anxiety to not have their phone, So, but I have found when I have made an effort to do it, I feel a lot more peaceful.
Absolutely.
I'm
reminded of this moment where I think someone asked me something similar a while ago,
right.
and I said, I was trying like meditation, and then I say, I downloaded this app.
Yeah.
And like saying it out loud, I was like, oh my God, I downloaded an app so I can meditate.
Yeah.
Like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem okay.
How do you unplug? Well, what I do is I plug into my phone and use this app that unplugs me.
Yes. I never even realized it until I said that.
Yeah.
And it was just like this realization of, oh my gosh, like that's not really unplugging. I mean, okay, like, fair enough. I think the app was like trying to train people
Yeah. It's a step.
to meditate.
Yeah.
So it's a step. So I don't want to take that away.
Mhm.
But just hearing myself say that, it was definitely like, whew, interesting.
How about your kids?
Mhm.
Are they connected? Do they use tech?
No, well, my kids
How
are
old are
young. They're 4.5 and 6. So, like,
Okay.
they're pretty young. We have an iPad, and they will play on the iPad or, like, watch, Netflix on the iPad or something sometimes. But it's very limited. I'm like, pretty strict with
Their
screen time.
screen time?
Pretty strict.
Not
I'm not
your own,
I'm
but-
not my own. Not my own. Although,
Yeah.
my only screen time, honestly, like, I don't really watch television. It's
Yeah.
rare. Sometimes I'll get into like a good series.
Yeah.
I like series, but and that's it. Like, I do not sit down and like watch a lot of TV
Yeah.
or movies. Like, actually, it's funny. Like, the thought of watching an entire movie feels kind of undoable for not doable for me. It feels
Yeah.
like that's why I like series, because they're just about maybe 45 minutes long per episode, and I can just choose to end it there.
Have you gotten into anything good lately?
So yes, so we watch a lot of like Netflix series.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
typically
yeah.
where we go. So I don't know if you've heard of Mindhunter.
Yeah.
So first season was
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Second one I didn't love as much, but I think I was in a weird state of
I'm halfway through the second
mind.
season right now.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
won't say anything, but I didn't love it as much. But
Yeah.
I really love the subject matter.
Yeah.
And
It's creepy,
it is.
but it's quite good.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how it's like the beginning of like behavioral sort of psych in the space of forensics, right? And so
Yes.
it's funny because in our division
Psychological
here,
profiling.
psychological
stuff.
profiling,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's actually like building the case for it. And I feel like so much of what you see in that show is similar. I mean, not at all the same subject
Mhm,
area, but it's similar to trying to make the case for so many of like the new disciplines or like the new methods that we're trying to spin up in the public service, which is part of what the Innovation Hub kind of does, right? So we have the
Right, right,
Behavioral
right.
Insights Group, which is part of our division,
Mhm.
and they apply behavioral insights to any type of like behavioral based challenge or something that's happening in government, right? So like there were so many similarities.
Yeah.
And so that was really fascinating. And a lot of the challenges that they were facing in Mindhunter, we face here in our work.
The FBI people, not the serial killers.
No.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is true about. They're both in a government context, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue that the FBI and some of those federal agencies are more like they're more entrenched bureaucracies than even we have at the
Oh, yeah.
at the provincial or in the state level,
Yes.
right? So they're very hierarchical,
Yes.
very kind of earn your stripes. Who are you? What's your rank?
Yeah.
What business do you have? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that
Yeah.
sort of style.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like it's fascinating because like
yeah.
part of their job is to interview the serial killers.
yes,
And this isn't like exact, but essentially so many people in the FBI would say, why the heck would we ever do that?
yes,
Right? But that is very similar to where we were even like 10 years ago in the public service, where we were saying, well, let's go and ask citizens.
yeah,
Well, why would we do that? Well, it's actually really important to understand where they're coming from. Yeah.
and motivations and
Absolutely.
yeah, all that sort of stuff.
So much, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Paint
fascinating.
the picture.
It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah, so that was one.
You finished that.
Animal Kingdom, wholly intense.
Is it good?
You know, I'm starting to it's starting to kind of fall off a little bit for me.
Okay.
But that's something that we're watching a little bit right now. Yeah. So the fact that it's hard for me to come up with them is kind of
Indicative
of
how
I don't
yeah.
watch a ton. Yeah. I'd have to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you on the I hear you on the shows being short. I like the ones that are filmed for half an hour TV slots because they're 20 minutes, 22 minutes, and then 10 or 8 minutes allowed for commercial breaks. But on Netflix, you don't have commercials, of course. I love Schitt's Creek.
Oh,
the
I
Eugene
haven't watched
Levy
it.
show. Oh my God, it's up for a lot of awards.
Okay.
Now, highly recommend checking it out.
See, I don't do. Is it a comedy?
It is a comedy,
Yeah,
but
see,
it's got a
I
dark
should do it.
side
Yeah.
to it too. It
Yeah.
has a kind of it's
I tend to do like
well
the
written.
dramas,
okay.
the thrillers. Like I do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think a little comedy and lightness is a nice balance sometimes.
Yeah.
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 So I should look into that.
Yeah. So, just getting, but now I'm
got
like, what
off
have we been
track.
talking about?
What?
We've been
We got
talking
off
about
track.
Mindhunter and all this different and Matt will come get us when we've
Yes.
when we're getting close to time here.
Yeah.
So I know you got a call.
No,
You got to get
Yes.
to later, but what do I want to know about you, Jen? Well, one thing I'd like to know is that one thing we haven't touched on is a huge event that your group puts on every year.
Yes.
Remix.
Remix.
And was last year the first time Remix was put? Is it going to be an annual thing? You doing it again?
Well, we don't know.
Okay.
So let's plan lightly.
Okay, we'll plan lightly for that. But
so
if it was coming up, I wanted to give you an opportunity
it is. So we know
it.
it's coming up.
It's coming up.
Yes. What I'm saying is I don't know if it will continue for
Annualized
10 years.
after. Oh,
but
I see.
we are holding another remix in February.
In 2020.
In 2020.
February.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's happening.
Okay.
It's confirmed.
Okay. So what is Remix all about? You're the Innovation Hub puts on the Remix conference. What is it all about?
Yeah. So I think that they will probably change every year if we hold them every year.
Okay.
So like the first time we held it was this year in February. And for this year, it was focused on bands 4 and up, including our corporate executive.
Okay.
And the reason for that was that so much of the research that we did pointed to the fact that we needed to really focus on our senior to executive leadership in the space of fostering and supporting innovation. So we chose to kind of, focus the audience for this particular year. Next year, however, we're opening it up to all of the public service. So it doesn't matter what level you are, you're more than welcome to join if you can. So this year, I keep saying last year like it was last fiscal. This calendar year, the focus was on leading an innovative public service. And so the idea was that, we're all managers, supervisors, directors, EDs, et cetera, we probably are all managing people or programs of some sort. And what is our role in leading this culture shift to become a more innovative public service? And so we had a variety of speakers, brought in people from outside, inside the organization. We really wanted the experience to be different. So we had some principles behind we have principles behind all of our events essentially for how we want people to feel when they leave. But for this one, it was really important that people left going, that was different. And it's also really important for us to take the learning to if we can, a more kind of transformational space. So we talk about transformational learning opportunities as opposed to your typical kind of, I'll go take a webinar and of course, I'm going to learn something, but maybe it hasn't changed me as a person. And obviously, we know that in 2 days or in a half-day workshop or whatever the case may be, you won't be ultimately changed. But maybe it's the beginning of change, right? So if that's all we can kind of impart on someone, I think that we've done kind of part of what we've set out to achieve. So,
and this is in Victoria?
This is in Victoria. So for now, they are based in Victoria. It's not to say that we are not open to doing them elsewhere for purely kind of logistical reasons because our team is based in Victoria. It's a lot easier for us to put on a conference of this size where we are based. But again, we're very aware that these are the kinds of things that we do need to kind of get out and offer more widely. So there could be some changes to that in the coming
Right.
years or months or years. Yeah.
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 I know some of the sessions were recorded last year, so people can watch some of the sessions. I'm assuming you'll do something similar this year, but is there going to be any sort of live stream that people can tap into?
This is a thing.
Maybe early days.
Well, it is early days to decide, because what we're doing right now is we're building an agenda, and what we're doing is we're actually going out to the public sector innovation community and asking them to co-design the agenda with us. So last year what we did is we went out and we had a sense. We're like, okay, so here we want to talk about this, and here we want to talk about this. And we tried to fit speakers or practitioners in. And this year we're going, hey, this is what we want to cover. What do you have to offer? So it's
topic-wise.
What can you bring to the table?
Okay.
And then from there, we're going to do a bit of back and forth and build our agenda. So it's a little bit of a different kind of just direction that we're taking, and it's a bit of an experiment. We'll see kind of how it goes. But ultimately, it is a 2-day immersive event where people will get to roll up their sleeves. Like, it's really important for us that people come and they actually like do something. It's not just a talking head at the front of the room. Obviously, sometimes we're going to have, the keynote speaker who's a little bit more of the traditional style. But for us, it's something that we really we kind of really try to focus on is, again, having these different types of experiences that can open up your mind to a different way of doing something. So, but all through learning, obviously. So there could be a focus on certain methods. Like this year, we had someone from the Strategic Foresight group and CoLab in the Ministry of Alberta come and do a session on that. So that was like a specific method that we kind of highlighted. And then there could be some more kind of broader themes around public sector innovation around like leadership or leading teams effectively or things like that. So it can kind of range. Again, because we're building it, we're unsure right now what the full agenda will look like.
Yeah.
But
how many people?
So it would be up to 500 people.
Okay.
So it's not huge. Like, it's not like thousands.
Was it totally full last year or no?
So we sold out. Yeah.
Yeah.
However,
but it was limited to bands 4
and up. Yeah. And unfortunately, what we experience, and we're not the only ones to experience this in the public service, but a lot of things happen in our day-to-day world, and people don't show up to things that they have registered for. So that's an unfortunate thing. We have a lot of people that just, they will sign up and life happens and they're unable to make it at the last minute, right? So we really hope to see even bigger numbers this year. And so I would say, like, if you're interested, we have a space on At Work where we blog and we talk about the work that we do. And so we'll be talking about Remix there. And if you're interested, absolutely, that we would do, like, you would kind of register for a ticket. So absolutely register for a ticket and join in on the fun and be ready for an experience. Like, that's the point, is we want people to kind of be taken through a learning journey, and come out on the other side kind of feeling like revived, ready with maybe some new tools, some new tools in their toolkit to actually start using in their work. And also, the other thing that's really important to say is, I mentioned our why earlier, and it was around building a movement. And so community is really big for the work that we're in, and it's really important that we're able to connect one another in multiple different ways, right? Like, so sometimes we'll be connected through our work, and sometimes we'll be connected through our passions, and sometimes we'll be connected through our challenges, things like that. But it's really important that we grow our network so that we have a support network around making change happen in the public service. And so kind of underlying a lot of these things is, how do we then, great, you come to a 2-day event, you've learned some interesting things, you've met some interesting people, but then what does that like sustainable kind of support system look like? Right. So the question that we ask ourselves is, how might the Innovation Hub help create that support network?
Right.
What does that look like? What can we do? The last thing we want is anyone to leave anything that we host and kind of just like put that behind them and go back to their desks and be like, well, Because we know that happens. That happens all the time. It's human nature,
Yeah.
right? You go back to your day-to-day and you kind of forget what happened at Remix in February,
Yeah.
right? So what does that sustainment look like? It's
Yeah.
really important for us.
When can people register?
Good question.
Do you know yet?
I
Probably
don't know.
in the new year?
I don't know right now. Yeah, probably
Not
after
until-
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just got a note from Matt to take a
Yeah.
pause. I'm
Okay.
just going to check. One sec. We'll keep going. But
He's walking
we
away.
got it.
Okay.
You got to go in a little bit here. So
Yeah. It's good.
you got to go at 2:30, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is he coming in? So we just paused.
Good. I just want to make sure there's still tape. So there's 22 minutes left to tape.
We only got about 8 minutes
Yeah.
left, and then she's got to go anyway.
Okay.
So we're
perfect.
gonna
We're good.
wrap up.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. So this is just a note for Matt that we're gonna start recording again now. So that's how people get people are going to be able to register
Yeah.
in the new year for Remix. So that's something to look forward to. That's
Mhm.
great. Yeah, I'm curious about. I'm interested, Jen, because when you came in and we were kind of looking at the mics and talking a little bit. I asked you if you were nervous for our session. You did
Oh,
seem
yeah.
a little bit nervous, but then the mics came on and you didn't seem nervous anymore. I don't know if you were
I
or
was.
if you were. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah.
But you definitely do have like a confident style when you speak. When you speak, unlike myself, you can speak well.
You speak well.
But I am curious about, this is something I've learned from a couple of leaders that I really respect and I look up to. Sometimes we can, especially when we're supervised by someone or when we see a leader doing amazing work, we're like, man, they really just have all the answers because they're just so confident all the time in the way they speak. And so I imagine that you're shaking your head. You're like, no one sees me like that. But I think some people do and will see you like that. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about a time in your career when you doubted yourself, when you were like, that was really just not.
Oh man,
Don't say every day. Project the confidence. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I won't say every day,
Yeah.
but like I think it's natural to doubt yourself a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I do doubt myself a lot. And I think I think it's related a little bit to that culture of feedback kind of piece that we were talking about earlier. I think if you have a really strong feedback loop, it helps, right, with the doubt. And I think also in the work that I happen to be in, it's a little bit more of like a nebulous area. It's sometimes it can be difficult to measure how what we're doing is having an impact. I think it's we say in the Innovation Hub that we're playing the long game. Like this is not change will not happen overnight, not even 6 months. This is a multi-year affair. So yeah, so I think I doubt myself a lot. But I think the way that I kind of curb that, like I said, is I check in and I ask, like, how am I doing? And can I be doing anything different? Can I be considering other things? Am I missing anything? I think that's kind of how I check in. And then on the flip side, I try to read a lot about what other people in similar areas are up to. So I just try to inform myself, and I think that helps to curb the doubt a bit. But I don't know. To me, it feels like it's kind of maybe natural that people doubt themselves.
I think it's healthy
Yeah.
to doubt, like to have some
Keeps you
measure
on your
of doubt.
toes, maybe.
Yeah, and
don't
just
know.
keeps you from bulldozing people over
Yeah.
and taking over conversations and I mean, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but to have some sort of check on like, I don't know, if you talk to someone who's confident all the time, 100% of the time, God, they're an annoying person to be around, right? Because they don't
and you
take
gotta
into consideration.
wonder.
Yeah.
Like you got to wonder about like the authenticity there.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's,
Yeah.
you can't be confident about everything all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I doubt myself a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone just starting out in the public service?
My advice would
Based
be
on your experience. Like what,
based on my
yeah,
experience,
yeah.
would be stick with it. I was ready to leave the public service within 6 months of starting. And I gave myself a few more months and things really started to turn around. I think, so stick with it. Find your path somehow. So try to connect with people that may not be the obvious people that you would connect with on a day-to-day basis. So this maybe is part of like the network piece or like building your community of people. And I think that is a really important thing. That might be the extent.
I think that's good advice. I was early on. I almost left the BC
Yeah.
Public Service
You hear it
a couple
lot.
of times.
Yeah.
And I think it's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But to stick with it
Mm-hmm.
and find your people, I think that's great advice. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jen Racine. I know I did. If you're interested in learning more about what the podcast is all about or tuning in for further episodes of Leadcast, please follow along on the blog